breaking news that we want to address, that we want to talk about. If you've been paying attention to the airwaves right now, you know that former President Trump has been raided by the FBI. His Mar-a-Lago home was raided by the FBI. This is breaking news. It's still a developing story. There's a lot of details that we don't know. But what we do know is that this is an overreach by the FBI. This is completely unprecedented. I don't believe in our nation's history we've ever seen a president raided by some federal agency. So this is huge breaking news that really just shows you the scope of the FBI and how they can target anyone. No one is outside of the FBI's ever watching eyes, it looks like. And they were able to just go into the president's home, look for documents, broke into his safe, and he could do nothing about it. This is some scary stuff, and we just had to comment on this. Right now, I want to bring in producer G. I want to bring in Garrett Humbertson from the background. Usually he's kind of in the back going through the different transitions and everything, but we want to bring him on for some commentary. So Garrett, what do you make of this break-in or this raid that was done on the former president?
Well, Andrew, thank you for having me on, and it's really a dark day in American history. I mean, this is not what America is about. This is not how a free society, a civil society operates. It's a large departure from where we've come from when the federal government is weaponizing its power that it's centralized against political opponents. And make no mistake, that is what's happening here. Because President Trump, not only was he the president of the opposing party, but he may very well and probably will run for president again. This is not an aberration. We know that there have been many examples of this over the last few years. Even before Trump was president, they were tapping his internet service and so on. But look back to 2012 when the Tea Party was targeted by the IRS, and they were discouraging free speech even as they are today. And they're going after not only our First Amendment rights and our Fourth Amendment rights, but also our Second Amendment rights. This is unacceptable. This has gone way too far, and I'm hearing too many pundits say, oh, this is why we need to vote in the election, this is why we need to elect President Trump, and this is why we need a Republican Congress. Guys, first of all, that has not worked ever. And what gives you the idea that either political party is seriously interested in uprooting this corruption? Because it is a cancer, but they have given us no indication that they're actually serious about that, besides a lot of talk. And think back to when the Republicans had control of all three branches of the federal government in 2017 and 2018. Did they do a damn thing about any of this? The answer is no. So I don't have any faith that the Republicans or the Democrats or whoever is going to actually solve this and do what needs to be done. And what needs to be done is not just put more good people, quote unquote, to be corrupted by a corrupt system, but to actually restore the system to what it was intended to be, because the system we have today, newsflash, is not what the Founding Fathers gave us. It's not what's in the Constitution. It's been radically distorted by the Supreme Court and overreaches that has happened over time. That's why we need to use the biggest tool in our toolbox, and that is what the Founders told us to use. When Congress got oppressive, when the federal government got out of control, they said use Convention of States in Article 5. It's a secret weapon that we have. We need to use it now, and it's not up to just a small group of people that you don't know about. If you're a viewer, you are part of the solution. You have to go to conventionofstates.com and join your local COS team to help make this happen, because we need to do it right now, and we need you to help.
Garrett, you're bringing up really great points, and I want to address a few of them. First, you talked about President Trump getting kind of surveilled and getting raided by the FBI, and that this just didn't come out of thin air. I mean, look at it started in his candidacy, and then it went into his presidency, and now it's bled over into his after he was the president, as a former president. The FBI has been coming after him since the very beginning, and like you said, this didn't just come out of nowhere. It's for a long time now, for decades, federal agencies have been gaining more and more power. They've been amassing power, they've been centralizing it, and now we are seeing the fruit from this poisonous tree. It is now at a point where it is okay, it's accepted within the intelligence community, within the FBI, within other federal agencies to not only spy on a president, but to raid a former president and go in there and take the documents that they want to take, that they deem are classified and that doesn't belong in his possession. So that's one point. The other thing that you brought up, you talked about how elections are not going to solve this. This is absolutely true. And not only are elections not going to solve this, a single person in office is not going to solve this.
Yes.
I mean, if President Trump is any testament, I mean, that guy went in with a hacksaw trying to demolish the swamp, the deep state, and all of the entrenched bureaucracy that was there, and he couldn't get it done. And the next person after him, whether it's a Ron DeSantis or it's Ted Cruz or whoever, they're not going to be able to do it either. One person can't get this done. It needs to be from outside of Washington, D.C. It has to be with the people. The people need to enforce, just call a convention. It's up to we the people now. I mean, this is proof that it is up to we the people. We can no longer just trust a single person to do it. I mean, that one single person who we trusted, who was going to go in and drain the swamp, the swamp came after him, and the swamp is trying to devour him. I'll tell you this, the swamp may be successful in devouring single people, but they cannot devour we the people. So it needs to be we the people. Go to conventionofstates.com. Go to the Take Action page. Get involved. We need you in this fight. Make sure that you are signing the petition. Make sure you're sharing the petitions. Follow us on our social media. You need to share as widely as possible. A convention of states, Article 5, it's right there in the Constitution, allows us, we the people, to go to our state legislatures to call an Article 5 convention of states to limit the federal government. This is another, like you said, Garrett, this is another time or another moment where we see the alphabet soup federal agencies coming after not just a president, but we the people. It's not going to stop with the president. They've got a taste for power. They're going to continue to consolidate it, and they're going to, change from the president, and they'll start targeting Americans. That's next. So we need to stop it now. The time to act is now, not tomorrow, not next week, not next month. It's now that it's the time to act. With that, Gary, if you have any final comments, go ahead and jump in, because this is just huge news that we really need to push on our grassroots and tell them to just get engaged right now.
Well, it's exactly what Mark Meckler said last week, right? When he was at CPAC, he had that great line about, here, look, this is what we can do with an Article 5 Convention of States. We can actually drain the swamp because we can do term limits. The second prong is fiscal restraints. They're spending way too much money. That's why we're seeing so much inflation right now and a devaluing of our money that we've earned. It's because they keep spending way too much. They print way too much money in Washington, D.C. because they don't care about us. That's what D.C. stands for. It's that they don't care. They really don't care. And the third thing is limiting the power and jurisdiction of the federal government. In the Convention of States application, the 19 states have passed so far. We need to get 15 more. What we can do with that is actually abolish these federal agencies. We don't need these many federal agencies. They've accrued and centralized way too much power, taking the power out of our hands, making themselves bigger and us smaller. We need to get rid of things like the FBI, the EPA, the Department of Education. Send this power back to the states where it can actually be accountable to we the people, because right now in Washington, D.C., we have little to no power over what happens there. They do not care what... And this goes back to what happened with Trump. Goes to a new poll that happened to be released this morning by Convention of States Action in partnership with the Trafalgar Group. And it revealed that the vast majority of Americans believe that there is a two-tiered justice system here in America, and they're right. And it's not just Republicans, and it's not just independents, but a supermajority of Democrats also believe this. When we're at that point in our country, something has gotten way off track, and there needs to be a radical reset. Not just we just need to get the right people in, or we just need to tinker around the edges. No, this calls for radical restoration of our system back to what it was intended to be, so that we the people are back in charge.
Okay, we're going to have a lot more comments and things to cover in this Facebook Live, and of course, Mark Meckler, I'm sure, is going to be breaking this all down in his battle cry that will be coming up Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. All right, enjoy the rest of the show. Well, hello, COS supporters. Welcome back to another edition of COS Live. My name is Andrew Lusch. I'll be your host for this episode. And of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Rita Peters, who is also the Senior Vice President for Legislative Affairs. Rita, it is great to be back with you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I was out on vacation last week, and Andrew, I heard you were gone too. And I heard producer G filled in for both of us and did an outstanding, amazing job.
That's right. He stepped into the breach and he performed so wonderfully. We were just talking about how we need to bring him on and do a three-way discussion sometime in the future. I think the viewers just loved Garrett and they'd love to see more of him. Rita, I want to know where our viewers are tuning in from. So
Me too. Yeah.
Please drop us a comment below. Let us know what state you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you. And while you're at it, give us a rumble, a retweet, a share. Wherever you're tuning in from, kind of put out the word, because this is how we start Brush Fires of Liberty, by telling fellow patriots. Let's get the word out about Convention of States and Article 5, which is the secret weapon that our founding fathers gifted to us. It's time that we use it. Again, we're going to use Article 5 to rein in federal overreach. Our success really ultimately depends on you. So we got a great show lined up, Rita. We're going to be talking about the Business Insider hit piece that was also trafficked on MSNBC, Yahoo News, and a slew of other establishment media outlets. So we'll be talking about that in a few moments. And of course, Mark Meckler, he did not take this laying down. He fought back, and he fought back hard. He's had a whirlwind of a week. And I don't know how our fearless leader does it, but he did it admirably, and he really pushed back against some of the lies and falsehoods that are peddled in these hit pieces. So we'll be talking with him in just a few moments. Also, he's going to be talking about his time on the main stage of CPAC, which was the first time for him and for Convention of States. So we'll get his insight on that. We're also going to be talking about how you, the audience, can fight back and throw your voice into the mix as well. We're going to be joined by Dave Schneider, who is a regional director, and he's going to be talking about this great competition. Joining us today is our fearless leader, Mark Meckler, who is the CEO and the co-founder of Convention of States. He's also the Grand Poobah. The staff likes to call him the Grand Poobah. Mark, thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you back. How are you doing?
You know, I'm recovering is what I would say. I'm glad to be home. It's been a couple of weeks on the road, DC, up in the Rockies for our staff retreat, back to DC, then for CPAC for a few days. In the middle of CPAC, I drove to Austin and gave the keynote at Patriot Academy, then back to CPAC. So honestly, sitting here in the library, I'm really happy just to be in one spot.
Well, it certainly sounds like a whirlwind. You've been all over the place. There's been a lot of things happening right now with Convention of States. Last month, though, before that whirlwind, before everything kind of went crazy, we had a wonderful staff retreat in Colorado. We were at the Tarryall River Ranch. We enjoyed each other's company. We worked, we played, we had a lot of fun. We get back, though, and right as we get back, Business Insider drops this hit piece against Convention of States action. Really, it was a warning to all of the leftist organizations that Convention of States is growing momentum, that we are going to work tirelessly, that we are going to not stop until we get to a convention. And they were kind of acting as a canary in the coal mine, if you will, saying that we are a fringe group, that we're the alt-right, that we're going to rewrite the Constitution. It just went on and on and on and on. But then there were other kind of media outlets that are also really just leftist bastions for leftist journalists, I should say. MSNBC, Raw Story, Salon, Yahoo News, The Washington Post. Just all of these media outlets jumped on it after the hit piece came out. We have a clip for you to watch. It's about a minute long. This is from MSNBC. We're going to play this, and then we want to get your reaction.
Okay.
And what sort of measures would they want to see happen? What sort of changes would they like to see made to the Constitution?
So the group that currently has the most momentum in pushing for a convention called Convention of States, and their convention would restrict the fiscal powers of the government, rein in the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, which is pretty broad, and impose term limits on federal officials. So all part of this project of reducing the federal government's power and putting it back in the hands of the states. And they would need 34 states to pass their call for a convention.
And who are some of the key names, per your reporting, behind this push?
So the convention movement has a lot of the same figures from former President Donald Trump's orbit and from the last several decades of Republican politics. Former Senator Rick Santorum is a senior advisor to this group, Convention of States, and he's done a lot of work pitching state lawmakers on this plan behind the scenes. John Eastman, the legal scholar who aided Trump's efforts to try to overturn the election, also a supporter of the convention movement. So a lot of ties to Trump world and a lot of elements to this movement that Trump would find a lot to enjoy.
And how likely, per your reporting, is this to happen?
So, we're under no illusions. It is absolutely an uphill battle to get 34 states to call for a convention. The group with the most momentum, Convention of States, has 19 at the moment, so they need 15 more. And it's worth noting, not everyone in the conservative movement is behind this, and that's why this movement has run into some roadblocks. But what is interesting is this movement in the context of Republicans' willingness to play the long game and achieve their goals over decades.
Oh, well, there it was, trying to tie us to fringe organizations, saying that some people that have been associated with Convention of States were part of trying to overturn the election. I mean, immediately this attack ad is just going into all outright falsehoods. But what did you think about this attack ad and then just some of the other attacks that we saw this last week?
I mean, in one word, fantastic. I mean, really, 95% of what she said during that interview, I would have said if I was on that program, or you or Rita would have said. To be fair, I mean, I got to say, it's one of the most impartial and fair observations of Convention of States from the left that I've ever seen. And so to hear her lay it out like that yes, it's an uphill battle. They're at 19, 15 more to go, that there's a lot of familiar names that are involved with it. I mean, really, the only thing that she threw in where she is attempting to be derogatory really is when she says ties to Trump world. I mean, look, Rick Santorum was not a huge Trump fan and probably got crosswise with Donald Trump a couple of times. And so there isn't a lot of the quote unquote crossover with Trump world. The John Eastman tie she used because Eastman created some controversy for his counsel to the former president on how to stop them from counting the electoral college votes. He came up with some of that strategy, but really mostly factual and mostly it's kind of funny, but I've been joking around like I'd have paid for most of that PR.
Totally agree, Mark. She did a great job with her little 30-second or 60-second elevator speech. And she had the 3 subject matter areas down for the convention. I totally agree. She did a great job talking about it. My question is, why do you think these hit pieces are coming right now? I mean, we did pass in 4 states this year, so that was huge, but it's been a few months since we passed in a state, so we don't have any huge campaigns going on right this minute. Why do you think all of these leftist organizations or media sources are coming out with these hit pieces right now?
Well, one would be the longest term answer, which is we've always known it was going to come. From the very beginning, we've talked about eventually the left will take note of us. They'll start working against us. They'll start saying terrible things about us. So we've always known this was coming. Rita, as you know, probably, I want to say 2 years ago, we started seeing lobbyists show up in the legislature that were hired by an organization called the Arabella Group. And this is quote unquote dark money on the left. They started hiring left-wing lobbyists to lobby against us in the legislature. So we saw that starting to rise. So they've been escalating steadily. We had 5 years ago, we had essentially the hit piece done in a press release by Common Cause and Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. So there's no surprise here. Now, I would say its relation to the last state passing and being a couple of months, 4 months or so, whatever it's been, I can tell you that they've been investigating to write this piece for months. They've been trying to contact me and many others for months. So we've known it's been coming. And this is not the last one. There are more coming. And the AP right now is working on a hit piece as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. So it's interesting the timing of this hit piece that came out from Business Insider, because you went on Tim Pool's program right around the same time that this dropped.
Yeah.
And you spent a lot of time pushing back on some of the things, but you kind of said similar things to what you just told the audience about how it's kind of outstanding that we're getting this type of PR.
Yep.
So we have another clip lined up for you. This is when you were on Tim Pool's podcast.
Trump-tied conservatives are 15 states away from an unprecedented rewrite.
Is that
of the
you or me?
Constitution.
I don't know if Trump would call me a tied conservative.
I thought you guys were rhinos. I mean, I'm surprised to hear that you're
now we're Trump
based
guys.
MAGA
now we're
guys.
Trump conservatives. So there you go.
So 15 states are away from an unprecedented constitutional convention. Now I bring up this article simply because they're shocked. They're worried. There may be constitutional amendments at the state level. I think it's fantastic. Why is it that you guys want this? What are your thoughts on it? Is it good or bad? Obviously,
Well, I think, first of all, one of the most telling things about that Business Insider article, there's a statement of absolute horror that Congress couldn't control it, the president couldn't control it, and the courts couldn't control it.
You mean the central government could not act?
Oh my God.
What are we going to do?
Absolute horror, right? So I literally saw that article. It's a hit piece against us, and I thought, this is fantastic.
it's against you. It's a hit piece against you guys specifically.
Yeah, against Convention of States. This is a grassroots group. There are over 5.2 million people involved, just regular folks all over the country. They're actually in every single state legislative district in the United States of America. And I understand why the establishment is terrified of this. And by the way, there's plenty of establishment on the right that is terrified of this too. They don't want us taking their power away and giving it back to the people. That's the entire purpose of this. The founders intended it for right now.
So you and Senator Rick Santorum, you were in the studio with Tim Pool, who's very popular. Both of you were in the studio for the full 2 hours that he was broadcasting. And all of you you ran the gamut of topics. You talked about COS, politics, Western Civ, just the craziness of the left. I mean, there was no stone left unturned for discussion there. What was it like?
Honestly, the most fun interview I've ever had for multiple reasons. One is Tim's a really smart guy. So, I mean, I think it's easy to look at that and like, he's young, he's got his beanie on, it's pretty casual. The guy's brilliant. And he's incredibly well informed. He's a good businessman. So you're going to have a pretty high level intellectual discussion. Two is that he's not in agreement with us on everything. He tends to lean a lot more libertarian than I do. So you're kind of going to get out onto the edge with him and not necessarily always agree with him. I really like that. I prefer an interview like that. And then the idea of just sitting in studio for 2 hours. And there's actually 3 hours because we did an hour of bonus content that's off the main free site and into his paid site only. To be able to sit around with a group of people like that who are well informed and just chat politics and culture and Western Civ and foreign policy for 3 hours, it's just fun. It's just a privilege to have a loose discussion like that.
Well, Mark, I want to now talk about CPAC a little bit because I know you were recently on the main stage at CPAC. I'm pretty sure that's the first time we've ever been on the main stage at CPAC. And I believe producer G has a video of that. So let's watch a clip.
And that's what the Convention of States movement is about. It's about going to Washington, D.C. and taking your power back. Do you want to take your power back from D.C.? They will never give it to you, by the way. And the Constitution gives you the opportunity to do something extraordinary. The Constitution gives you the power, acting through your state legislatures, to demand your power back, to gather 34 states to call a convention, to get all the states together to propose amendments specifically for one reason and one reason only, and that is to restrain federal tyranny. Do you guys want to restrain federal tyranny?
Wow, that gave me chills.
The reason I'm laughing is because, you got to know when you're backstage at something like that, you're getting ready to go on stage, and this will make Rita shudder. She knows I don't prepare for speeches like that. I know my subject matter. I get her laughing at me. I know it drives her crazy. So I have no notes. I have no talking points. I don't say that to brag. It's just how I do stuff, right? And one is I'm trying to read the audience. I'm out in the audience before the speech. I'm walking the halls. I want to kind of get a vibe for what people are thinking. Two is, and this is really important, and Rita, you're going to see this, why I'm so right about this, is because I'm backstage. I have 10 minutes slotted. They're running behind. They mic me up. I get ready to go on, and I look down, and she's the woman who's the stage manager is looking at her screen, and it says I have 7 minutes. So now imagine if I had prepared a 10-minute speech, and suddenly it's 7 minutes. So for me, 7 minutes, 10 minutes, well, I don't know. I watch the timer, and it all works out. So it did work out. But also when I come off stage, one of the reasons I'm laughing is Patty, my wife, will often ask me, well, so what did you talk about? And my usual answer is, I really don't know. I went out there, I said a bunch of stuff, seemed like the audience liked it, so it probably worked out okay. In this case, I've had a bunch of people tell me, hey, that was one of the best condensed speeches we've ever seen you give. And the reality is, look, it was just the right moment, the right speech for the right audience. And a big part of it is just if you, and this is just a tip for people to go out there and speak publicly, if you can get the audience to exchange with you and to do interplay with you, and ask people, do you think the federal government has become a tyranny? And everybody will cheer yes. So it keeps the audience engaged. I thought the audience was totally with us. I know there were a lot of people who'd never heard of Convention of States before, didn't know what we were about. A lot of them came to the booth afterwards. I think CPAC, for us, it was a big experiment, and I would say it was tremendously successful.
Yeah, Mark, it's so funny. I just couldn't live like that, not having my speech planned out, but it always works for you. You're so gifted at it. But what do you think it means for Convention of States as an organization to have been on the main stage at CPAC?
I think it's really kind of a step up to the next level for us. Now, CPAC is the broadest, most important conservative Republican conference in the country. And I know there are people who are skeptical of it. You'll see people there that you don't necessarily agree with politically, but man, it's really a who's who of people that are moving and shaking in politics. And one of the reasons we haven't gone in the past is, that's not something I'm into. I don't feel the need to glad hand with people or stand there. The President Trump was there and we got to spend a couple seconds with President Trump. That's not something that I look for. I mean, look at me, right? I'm not one of those guys. But I have to say is if we want the national recognition that we need to get this done, to step up on the main stage at CPAC is a big deal. And lastly, I want to say, I love Matt and Mercedes Schlapp. These are true patriots. They've been willing to step into the fire. They run CPAC, if y'all don't know. Their whole family is basically, they're there. They have 4 daughters who are all there backstage. They take a lot of heat. They get a lot of abuse, like us, some of it from the right. And so to be there with them, to have their support, Matt and Mercedes were incredibly gracious to us, really helped us out. We met a lot of great people because of them. To me, it's a big deal. It's a big step up for Convention of States.
Mark, I hear that you were actually driving back and forth from CPAC to another event. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Were you in 2 places at once, or what was going on there?
Yeah, I mean, about as close as you can be. So I had previously committed, before we decided to do CPAC, to one of my closest friends and a sister organization that we love and support, and that's Patriot Academy. Rick and Kara Green, another couple engaged in politics. And Rick runs Patriot Academy. It's students who come together from all over the country. They spend several days together. They get together in the Texas legislature. They actually serve on the floor of the Texas legislature. They run a mock legislature for a week. Absolutely incredible event. And the Senate is run by veterans and active duty military personnel that serve as senators. Rick trains them in biblical citizenship while they're there. There's great speakers who are there. So I had agreed in advance to give the keynote address on Friday night at Patriot Academy, which is an incredible honor for me. But I was also supposed to be at CPAC. And so Friday morning, I woke up, I drove home, I changed into a different suit. I drove out to the Patriot Academy dinner. I gave the keynote. I got home at about 12:30 a.m., got into bed, slept 6 or 7 hours, got dressed again, drove back to Dallas. So as close as you can be to being in 2 places at once, we did it this weekend.
Well, Mark, what's coming up next on your schedule, or do you know?
Well, generally, I don't know. It's just whatever you tell me to do, Rita, is what I do. And honestly, for me, it's a little bit at home time. And so I got informed this morning that really I don't have any travel again until around the end of August. I think we're headed out to Cheyenne for a political event in Cheyenne with one of our good friends who is former gubernatorial candidate, Sam Galliotis. And so we'll be out there speaking. Rick Green's coming with me. Kirk Cameron's coming with me. Just a good, solid Western kind of conservative event. So I'm excited about that. But mostly just a few weeks at home to rest, recover. Of course, we'll continue working, but I'm glad to be a little bit off the road for a while.
Mark, before we let you go, can you give our viewers a call to action? With the hit piece that came out from Business Insider and kind of the other organizations jumping on it, I can bet that many of our viewers, they want to throw their voices in the pushback with you. So what can they do to push back against these hit pieces and just the kind of the lies that are circulating about Convention of States?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny to say, but I would share them broadly. And I would go to your friends and say, hey, if you want to know what the left is scared about in America, check out this article from Business Insider. Check out the clip from MSNBC about it. These people hate Convention of States because they love the centralization of power. So we were given a gift by the left, in my opinion, of a way to attract people to Convention of States, because conservatives naturally think, well, if the left really likes this, or really hates this, I should say, then I should really like it. So I think this is an opportunity to promote Convention of States by showing how much the left hates us. So I'd recommend that you circulate that widely and tell your friends, hey, here's a good reason to get involved with the Convention of States.
Mark, thank you. It's always a pleasure having you on the program. Can't wait to have you again so we could pick your brain and just get energized and charged up.
Glad to be here. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Mark.
Well, today we have a bonus guest joining us. Not only did we have Mark Meckler, but we also have Dave Schneider, who is the regional director. He is a regional director for Convention. He has the states Kansas, Minnesota, Nebraska, South Dakota, and Wyoming. Sometimes he refers to them as the Wild West states. Dave, it's a pleasure to have you join us again on the program. I want to jump right into this new competition that's going around, that's circulating in the grassroots. It's called COS Voices. Can you explain for the audience why it is important, what it is, and why it's something that all of the grassroots should be participating in?
Well, we all know that we love Convention of States, but sometimes it's hard to articulate it in a very short amount of time, at least to get through to an audience that has a very short attention span. We're finding that more and more Convention of States can be a complicated issue if we make it a complicated issue. So what we want is to have a competition centered around what we call an elevator speech, or a short introduction to Convention of States, with very specific parameters, being only a minute long at most, and give the chance for the grassroots to compete and see who can provide the best elevator speech to the new person that's never heard of Convention of States, to at least gain some attention and maybe further the conversation to possible supporter, or somebody that that will maybe be the next state director for a state or something along those lines. I know I have to do it a lot. I have to talk to a lot of legislators in the field when I'm talking to a brand new candidate, something along those lines. And a lot of times they've never heard of Convention of States, so I get a lot of practice doing this. And I try to teach as many people as possible, but without the practice and without actually doing it yourself, it's really hard for you to get good at it. So that's the genesis of why we're doing it, and I think it's going to be pretty fun.
Well, Dave, I want to mention that you are our longest serving regional director at this point, and you've been with the organization since the beginning, starting out as a volunteer. But you were serving as a regional director back in 2016 when we did a historic, actually the first ever simulated Convention of the States. And we recently announced that we will be doing another simulated convention next year in 2023. But that event, as you know, is for legislators. We do live stream it for the public to experience, so our grassroots can watch it and see how it all works. But only state legislators are invited to be the commissioners and actually attend in person. However, we are making a very special exception for the winner of this contest. So what kind of prizes are we giving the winners of this COS Voices contest?
So let's go through some of the rules and how we're actually going through this. And absolutely, I want to announce what the grand prize will be. You've already made some hints towards that, which is great. But we're going to compete on the regional basis. You mentioned my states as my region, so we will have a regional winner from each of the regions across America. And then the regional winners will then compete at our event in Orlando coming up in October. and basically be played at the main event there in Orlando in front of all of our supporters, in attendance in Orlando this fall. And at that event, we will announce who our grand prize winner is, and your video of your speech will be played there, as well as you'll be awarded a prize, which would be, as Rita just mentioned, we have a historic simulation that's going to be happening in 2023. You'll have the opportunity to go in person, all expenses paid, to the simulation in 2023. So very exciting. You'd be the only grassroots folks basically there in attendance to see it in person, not just watch it on your screen or live streamed. You actually get to go and sit in the gallery and watch the proceedings happen. I know if I was that person, I would be. I think I'd be polishing up on my elevator speech right now to make sure I was there in attendance. I was lucky enough to be there, as you mentioned, Rita, as well, and I got to sit on stage a little bit as the Sergeant at Arms last time. It was pretty historic, and I'm looking forward to getting back there next year. So hopefully that excites a few folks out there in the grassroots that would want to participate in this contest and get some submissions in. You can submit you can make your submission. The webpage is cosvoices.com, cosvoices.com. You can go to conventionestates.com/voices if you want as well. The cosvoices.com will redirect you to that same page. It is on our website. Just upload your video, just record it on your handheld mobile device, your cell phone, and just upload it right there. You can also be active on social media. We'd love for you to use the hashtag COS Voices out there, any of your socials. It doesn't matter which platform you're on, and certainly don't limit it to one. If you're on Gab or whatever, Facebook, Twitter, hashtag COS Voices, and we'll try to pick it up, remind you where to upload those links into our system. But we want to make sure you are a contest winner, or at least a participant in the contest, and have a chance of winning the grand prize. So,
And Dave, you just said a few moments ago you need to polish up your own. You would polish up your own elevator pitch if you were able to participate in this competition, given that the prize would be an all expenses paid trip to the simulation. So with that being said, and I know this shouldn't be too difficult for you because you're always with the grassroots and you're always talking to legislators, but can you give us an impromptu elevator pitch, 60 seconds or less, and I'm going to be timing you, just to kind of show the audience how it's done. So when you're ready.
First, I'm not quite ready, but I'll give you the audience some pointers. First of all, you want to be brief, and remember it's only a minute, and it is a complex. So the more you try to explain, it's hard to do. And so you try to be brief, be clear, specific to the audience, highlight the benefits of convention states, and identify the problem and solution, and make a compelling argument for a call to action. What's next? And your whole goal in the whole process is to create a continuing conversation past that 1 minute. So with that, Andrew, again, this is completely unscripted. So, all right.
1, 2, 3, go.
Appreciate you asking me about convention states. I noticed you noticed my shirt here today. Convention of States is simply a plan to save America. The federal government's out of control. It's certainly outside the bounds of what the founders intended it to stay in. And that's what Convention of States is all about. Simply put, we're trying to propose amendments to the Constitution utilizing Article 5 through a convention process that's spelled out in the Constitution that would place limits on the size of the federal government, the power of the federal government, and the money they can spend at the federal government. So with that, I would ask you to take a deeper dive with me in Convention of States and see what we're all about. But again, I work every single day in the grassroots trying to save America. You mind if you go to conventionofstates.com and sign our petition? That's where I would go.
Wow.
Right on the money. 52 seconds. That was really good. And no, you didn't have any practice beforehand. You just kind of off the cuff. Excellent.
Yeah, we didn't tell Dave we were going to ask him to do that on the show. Dave, that was awesome. So to our audience, if you're watching, why don't you take a crack at it? Brush up a little bit. You know, can practice as many times as you want. Write your script, memorize it, practice in front of a mirror, and be part of our competition. Dave, one more time, can you tell people where they go for the rules and the place they can upload their video submissions?
I think our producer G just put it up on the screen, but it's www.cosvoices.com, cosvoices.com. Again, you can post it on your socials as well. Hashtag COS Voices. There you go.
Very cool. Thank you so much for joining us, Dave. It's always a pleasure having you on the program. We hope to have you back soon.
I have a question for you all. By show of hands, who here wants to live in Venezuela? Come on, nobody? It can often feel like our government is on the path to socialism, and there's nothing we the people can do about it. But thankfully, the founders gave us a solution. It's called a convention of states, and using a convention of states, we the people can restore the federal government to how our founders intended it for it to be. And guess what? We can end corruption, we can end socialism, and we bypass Congress, we bypass the Supreme Court and the presidency, and any other branch of government that wants to take us down the path of socialism. Thankfully, we have a national organization that is fighting today to make that happen. So unless you guys want to live in Venezuela 2.0, now is the perfect time to go to conventionofstates.com, sign the petition, and get involved in the fight today. Thank you all.
We do this show every week because we believe in America, the greatest nation that has ever existed. But what is being done to her by swamp monsters in DC is a violation of everything that made her special. The founders knew this might happen, and they gave us a plan to fight back. In Article 5 of the Constitution, they inserted a failsafe, a convention of states for proposing amendments to rein in federal tyranny. We're organizing where we, the people, have the advantage in the states. The best part? Neither the president nor Congress can do a thing to stop us. Even the left is recognizing that now. The states are agreeing in advance to discuss amendment proposals on 3 topics: term limits, fiscal restraints on Congress, and limits on the size and scope of the federal government. This is truly a solution as big as our nation's problems. So join Governor Ron DeSantis, Ben Shapiro, Senator Rand Paul, Mark Levin, and millions of liberty-loving patriots by signing and sharing the petition at conventionofstates.com. Then click that Take Action tab to help us save America.
After you've decided to take action, get involved as a volunteer, please make sure that you are following us on all the platforms where we have a social media presence. Follow us on Rumble, MeWe, Facebook, Twitter, Parler, YouTube, Instagram, Getter, and TikTok. Please like the content and go ahead and share that content as well. You can listen to this podcast and other historic legacy content on our Convention of States podcast. Just search Convention of States wherever you podcast from. If you want to bypass big tech, you can text START to 54555. Again, that's START to 54555. This is how you can get important COS updates and receive important COS news without having big tech trying to shut you down. Check out the Battle Cry with COS President Mark Meckler, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll see you next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time for another edition of COS Live. Remember, politics is not a spectator sport. You have to get engaged. You have to be in the fight for liberty if you really want to save and change the country. Your country needs you. All right. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.